Part 52. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 511. Tang Liwen was silent. Her hand wasn't fully extended, just hanging there. After a long while, she suddenly said, "Zuyun, didn't you say you met Tang Tiangang in Chuzhu? He is also a descendant of my Tang family, and you didn't give it to him." "Give it?" Zuyun couldn't help but sigh and said, "Aunt Tang, please forgive me. I was only in the foundation building stage at that time, and I was really afraid that I would be in danger, so my friend handed me this explanation of formation Dao at that time. I copied a fake copy. Of course, the contents are consistent." It turned out that when Zuyun took the explanation of formation Dao from Atang, after reading it once, he felt that it was too profound and thought that he would not be able to understand it in a short time. It's not that he was greedy and wanted to keep this book, but he did get Atang's permission to study this book. So he didn't feel anything wrong. He also thought that this book would be returned to the Tang family sooner or later, and he might encounter it when he arrived in Yazhu, so he set out to make a copy in the Immortal Mansion. The one handed to Tang Tiangang was a copy, and the one in his hand was the real one. Tang Tiangang had never seen explanation of formation Dao. When Zuyun took it out, Tang Tiangang was suspicious, but when he looked through it, the content inside directly helped him break through. No matter how big his suspicion was, it disappeared. At this time, the reason why he wanted to return the original to Tang Liwen was not only because he already believed in Tang Liwen's character, but also because of Big Dog. You. Hearing Zuyun's words, Tang Liwen couldn't help crying or laughing, and said, "You are too careful to guard against others. However, maybe this is how you can go all the way from Yunzhou to Peeper Realm at such a young age." The reason? Even I, who is at the peak of the late stage of nascent soul, need your help to survive. Zuyun sighed and said, "Aunt Tang, I am a small casual cultivator. I want to pursue immortality, but also have to walk in this world of immortality where people cannibalize people. It's difficult. If I don't use my brain, I won't be able to live forever, let alone live forever. Living until the end of your life is just wishful thinking." Tang Liwen believed that it was because she was not cautious enough that Wang Jianren's eyes were ruined. She couldn't help but nodded and said, "That's true." Then, she took her hand back. "Zuyun, you'd better take the solution to the formation." Zuyun was surprised and said, "Aunt Tang, actually when you said you would go back to find the family inheritance, I had already thought about giving this book to you when you left." "How?" Tang Liwen smiled bitterly and said, "The original plan was that I had recovered my eyes and could read the insights about the formation left by my ancestors in the explanation of the formation. But after this trip, I went directly to Yunzhou to wait. You send back the heavenly book. It's useless for me to keep it at your place. If you can survive this disaster, then take a good look at my formation Dao. The success of the 7-star sect may also be of great help to you." Hearing this, Zuyun suddenly realized. "Then, I'll see you in Yunzhou then. I'll look for you with the Book of Heaven." "Okay, Aunt Tang is waiting for your good news." Tang Liwen reached out her hand again and touched Zuyun's head, and then her figure flashed. When she appeared again, she was already outside the valley. "Aunt Tang, have a safe journey." Zuyun muttered silently in his mouth, and then looked towards the great formation of stars. There is no one controlling this formation at this time, and there is no pressure on the 4 people in the formation. Zuyun didn't intend to control it, and wanted to take the opportunity to prepare some. He said to Sangu, "After you go in, tell Lao Jin and Lao Ma that they are ready to fight at any time. There are also Lao Zhao and Xiao Hua. If they see me summoning Lao Jin and Lao Ma, they won't be able to leave until they come out far away." This was Zuyun's worst plan, but he forced himself to escape from the Fire Dragon sect. Sangu looked at Zuyun with shock on his face. Is this almost calling out all the combat forces in the ranch? He didn't have time to ask Zuyun if he had fallen out with the Fire Dragon sect before he was sent back. In order to survive, he had to pass on Zuyun's news one by one. Zuyun, on the other hand, took out 80% of the spiritual stones on his body and set up countless self-destruct formations with the pavilion as the center. If it really comes to a life or death situation, he can only use the self-destruction array to cover himself and hide in the immortal mansion. Of course, he didn't know what the subsequent development would be, so he could only make multiple preparations. After setting up all the self-destruction formations, Zuyun walked towards the wooden house on the side of the valley. Tang Liwen told him that there were still materials for drawing talismans there. Ever since she started studying magic talismans, the materials she brought back then were no longer needed. Of course, it's all high-grade materials. It even solved the problem of Zuyun being unable to draw the talismans on Tao due to lack of materials. After sorting all the materials and putting them into storage bags, he returned to the pavilion and quietly looked at the 4 people trapped in the formation. It would be best not to fight. Because once his face is broken, it will be impossible for him to enter the secret realm of the Book of Heaven through the Fire Dragon sect. But if these 4 people are allowed to come out safely, their own quota will probably be taken away by Takahashi. After much thought, Zuyun decided to try another trick to fish in troubled waters. Kill Takahashi first. But once Takahashi dies, will Tianzhenzi become furious and then vent his anger on himself? Zuyun fell into deep thought. If he wanted to hide the truth, the first thing he wanted to do was to have evidence of alibi when the formation broke. But at this time, he didn't have the talisman to change the world, so he couldn't pretend to be someone else. If you escape, it will be even more difficult to stay in the Fire Dragon sect. So, a self-torture trick? Treat yourself as the person trapped here by Tang Liwen? Zhao Qiao, this guy, has a bad heart. He couldn't help but stretch out his hand in front of Tang Liwen just now, which shows that he doesn't have enough experience. So, Tianzhenzi brought him out to see the world. If I can arouse Tianzhenzi's interest with the art of formation, can I replace his position? Thinking of this, Zuyun's eyes flashed with a gleam of light. Zhong Jingguo and Dan Lao both gave Tianzhenzi enough face, so if I regard Tianzhenzi as a protective umbrella, I will naturally be safe. Even, that quota will eventually fall into my hands. Let's do it. Zuyun sneered and aimed his eyes at Zhao Qiao. As soon as he pinched the formation formula in his hand, Zhao Qiao suddenly felt that the wind and clouds in front of him changed color, and thousands of stars gathered towards him. All kinds of inexplicable power, with countless starlight, formed a human figure. The silhouette gradually became clear, and when he saw it clearly, it was Zuyun who appeared in front of him. You, who are you? Gao Qiao saw that it was a cultivator of the same realm as himself, and he couldn't help but relax a lot. He was just wondering, wasn't this formation set up by the blind woman Tang Liwen? How did it become a teenager? I am the formation spirit. Zuyun rolled his eyes and said mysteriously. Formation spirit? Impossible, my master said that only when you reach the stage of transformation of spirits, will the formation spirit be born in the formation. I am ignorant. Zuyun laughed and said, that's because your master's formation skills are too weak, so he didn't know that only in the stage of transformation of spirits can there be formation spirits. This Dozhuan Xinyi formation has been here for hundreds of years. I absorb the spiritual power of heaven and earth and refine the essence of the sun and the moon, so it naturally has spirits. Then, why did you come here? Hearing Zuyun say that his master's skills were not strong enough, Gao Qiao was slightly angry, but he didn't dare to show it. Being trapped in the array by the nascent soul stage and not seeing Tianzhenzi, he was naturally a little flustered. You are Tianzhenzi's disciple, and you are very powerful, but I haven't used any strength for most of the day, and you can't get out. I think it's just so-so. Zuyun guessed that Gao Qiao was also a conceited person. This is a common problem among geniuses. If he was provoked by this, it would definitely disturb his mind. It's not that Zuyun couldn't kill Gao Qiao by force, but he was afraid that the noise would be too loud and thus alarm Tianzhenzi. Of course, he could control the array and let Gao Qiao out. But he was still a little unfamiliar with the control of the array, and was afraid that if he was not careful, he would let the other three out at the same time. By then, not only would his plan fail, but he would also be trapped in a dead end. In order to achieve his goal, Zuyun could only be careful and cautious. You're talking nonsense. I'm very strong in formations, but I'm naturally powerless against formations in the nascent soul stage. Sure enough, Gao Qiao couldn't help but get anxious when he heard Zuyun belittle him. I guess that's what you would say. Zuyun understood and made a plan. I'm afraid you'll admit defeat. The formation master has arranged a new ordinary formation. I'm taking you out now. Do you dare to try it? Humph, why not? As long as it can be broken by the Jindan stage, I, Gao Qiao, can naturally break it. Zuyun grinned and pinched the formation formula in his hand. In the endless void, a passage was opened. He stepped aside and said, "You go out first." Knowing that he was fine, Gao Qiao showed a proud look again and walked towards the passage with his head held high. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 512. At the end of the passage is the pavilion. This is where the main formation I is and also the exit. Zuyun set up countless self-destruct formations here. But he was extremely concealed, and Takahashi was so focused on showing off his formation that he didn't notice it at all. Zuyun couldn't help but sigh in his heart, this is the difference in experience. If it were him, it would definitely not be like this. Hey, what about senior? Gao Qiao looked at the pavilion and asked Xianxia again. But suddenly, he realized something was wrong. You are an array spirit, how can you come out of the array? Unfortunately, Zuyun did not give him a chance. The chaos sword stabbed out silently and passed directly through his abdomen. At the same time, Zuyun also instantly placed a soundproof ban. Takahashi looked at Zuyun in disbelief. His eyes were slightly protruding, and his face was distorted by great pain. Until his death, he could not discover why the formation spirit held a sword. And why this sword could directly take his life. After Takahashi's vitality dissipated, Zuyun drew back the chaos sword and threw it back into the immortal mansion. There was blood all over the ground. He shook his head, sighed slightly, then turned around and flew into the wooden house. Then, a 9-turn 9-yang formation was set up outside the wooden house. Next, just draw the talisman and wait for them to come out of the formation. I believe that Takahashi's death can give them a great surprise and disturb their minds. In the big formation, Tianzhenzi, who was looking for a way to break the formation, suddenly felt his heart skip a beat. He looked away, feeling something was wrong. In the nascent soul stage, spiritual consciousness is rarely used, and induction is usually used. This ability has become almost instinctive. It is caused by cultivating to such a state. The aura of heaven and earth is turned into one's own use, transcendent and refined, and naturally different from ordinary monks. Strange, why is my heart palpitating? But this formation is not really activated, but just traps me here. Even though Elder Tang is like this, he has no intention of hurting anyone. He is probably just showing off his formation. After thinking secretly, Tianzhenzi continued to break the formation. The shifting formation patterns are hidden in the void. There are thousands of stars. As long as he connects these stars with formation patterns, he can find a way to break the formation. Of course, if someone controls this formation, they can make the stars move and change continuously. This can trap people for a longer period of time. People who do not have strong attainments in the formation Dao are more likely to be trapped for the rest of their lives, which shows how strong the formation Dao is. But Tianzhenzi is not a vegetarian. The number one person in the Peeper realm is the title given to him by everyone in the nascent soul stage. Concentrating his mind, Tianzhenzi wrote down the positions of the stars one by one, and connected the formation patterns in his mind. Breaking the formation already has a clue. And when he comes out of the battle, it couldn't be easier to let Zhong Jingguo and Dan Lao out. Even if Tang Liwen doesn't let go, he believes that it will be easier for him to break through from outside the formation. But he didn't know that Tang Liwen had already left the Fire Dragon sect and fled towards the Shiwen mountain. There is no time to cultivate immortality, and there is no time to break the formation. Tianzhenzi was completely immersed in it. By the time he saw through the formation and walked out safely, 3 hours had passed. But he had no time to be happy and saw Takahashi lying in a pool of blood. Suddenly, Tianzhenzi's eyes turned red and he rushed forward. Takahashi! Who killed you? He squatted on the ground and helped Takahashi up. I saw the wound on his lower abdomen causing the residual blood to spurt out again. His eyes are slightly bulging, and he won't close his eyes until death. Zuyun and Tang Liwen's guess was correct. The deal between Tianzhenzi and Zhong Jingguo was to use the place in the secret realm of the Book of Heaven in exchange for attacking Tang Liwen. But who would have thought that his apprentice would die tragically here? Who is it? Who is it? Tianzhenzi was so angry that he stood up and started shouting wildly in the pavilion. But didn't get any response. But after a moment, he calmed down. The leader of a sect has never seen anything like this before. Takahashi died quietly here. He would never believe it if he said it had nothing to do with Tang Liwen. And obviously, Tang Liwen also left here. It's just this wound. He was obviously injured by the sword, but he didn't feel a trace of spiritual power remaining here. This is Zuyun's brilliance. Granted, he can use any kind of spiritual power. But he didn't use it, and stabbed Takahashi to death directly with the power of the Chaos Sword. Moreover, if the sword is placed in the Immortal Mansion, who can find it? No big deal, just show Tianzhenzi the storage bag. Anyway, he had prepared everything. Anything that might expose his identity and make people suspicious was thrown into the cave of Immortal Mansion. After a while, I found nothing, and my eyes suddenly focused on the wooden house. There is a formation. And this formation has never been seen before. What kind of person is he? He can see at a glance the 9 turns and 9 yang formation arranged by Zuyun outside the house. This formation doesn't look strong, but it is extremely mysterious. It seems to have 9 changes in form. Is Tang Liwen in the formation? No, the person who set up the formation is only in the elixir formation stage. Tianzhenzi glanced at each other and knew that the changes in the Zhen at this time were mainly for sound insulation. He frowned slightly and said to himself, she is Tang Liwen's apprentice? But before coming here, I only heard that her apprentice is Lian Nishang, and he is also the apprentice of Elder Dan. Could it be that Takahashi accidentally got out of the Dozwan seeing shifting formation and then collided with Lian Nishang? No, it's impossible, it's very strange, but let's break the formation and go in to have a look first. The more Tianzhenzi thought about it, the more doubtful he became, so he simply stepped forward and walked towards the wooden house. Little did he know that all of this was designed by Zuyun. He just wanted to make Tianzhenzi confused about the situation, so that he could take advantage of it. When Tianzhenzi broke out of the formation, Zuyun sensed it immediately and quickly sat down cross-legged, pretending to be practicing. He believed that the 9 turns and 9 suns formation was enough to arouse Tianzhenzi's interest. Really? After Tianzhenzi approached the 9 turns and 9 suns formation, he stopped moving forward. With Zuyun deliberately leaving a flaw, Tianzhenzi only needed more than 10 breaths to completely break the formation. It's very good. 9 is the number of the sun, so the people who set up the formation used 9 changes. Tianzhenzi is a good person, and the admiration in his eyes covered up the gloom in his heart. Then, he pushed open the door and entered. Who? Zuyun opened his eyes suddenly, knowingly asking questions and pretending to be frightened. Boy, who are you? Do you know where Tang Liwen has gone? Tianzhenzi guessed that there was someone in the wooden house, but he did not guess that he was actually the one being plotted. I have seen Senior. I wonder why Senior wants to see Elder Tang? I have been practicing in this room, and I rarely see Elder Tang. Zuyun seemed extremely respectful. Regarding his acting skills, many people who met him for the first time were deceived. Tianzhenzi squinted his eyes. In fact, he could guess that Tang Liwen must have run away. It's impossible to stay here. But, does this kid know about this formation? Boy, do you know what formation this is? Back to Senior, Zuyun said seriously, this is the 9 turns and 9 sons formation. It was created by a young boy and made Senior laugh. Tianzhenzi's eyes flashed, did you do it? Yes, Senior, I don't dare to lie to you. Seeing Zuyun's sincere expression, Tianzhenzi was doubtful and said, then you can set up this formation again and show me. Senior, this. Zuyun pretended to hesitate, but without giving Tianzhenzi a chance to speak, he quickly took out 9 spiritual stones and sprinkled them around casually. Another 9-turn 9-yang formation suddenly took shape. Inside the formation, he naturally felt the same aura as the one that broke through before. And Zuyun is so skillful in his techniques, it is really possible that he has researched the formation. However, there is another possibility, that is, this formation was taught to this boy by Tang Liwen. However, this is no longer important. Zuyun's ability to form formations casually is not any weaker than Takahashi's. Tianzhenzi just thought for a moment and said, boy, are you willing to worship me as your teacher? This. Zuyun once again deliberately made things difficult and said, Senior, I have been favored by Elder Tang. Although I don't have the name of master and disciple, I am actually a master and disciple. If Senior wants to accept me as a disciple, I have to get Elder Tang's consent. Tianzhenzi laughed and said, boy, Elder Tang has already escaped after I broke through the star movement formation. So, who is stronger and who is weaker, can you tell clearly? After that, he waved his hand and pulled Zuyun out of the house. He pointed at Zhong Jingguo and Dan Lao who were still trapped and said, you should know them too, right? Zuyun was deliberately surprised and said, we know. Sect Master Zhong and the Elder of Dan Pavilion. Humph, Tang Liwen intends to rebel and trap the 3 of us here and take the opportunity to escape. She is afraid that I will break the formation and come to settle accounts with her, so she does not dare to stay here. Therefore, the master in your heart abandons you and wants to. What's the use of her? If you accept me as your teacher, I will teach you the way of formation. Zuyun was secretly happy that everything was as he expected. But in order to reassure Tianzhenzi, he could only pretend to be dumbfounded and said, but Senior, the boy is hidden here by Elder Tang, so he cannot be discovered by the people of the Fire Dragon section at this time. Elder Tang is not here either. If he is discovered again, I'm afraid no one will be able to take care of the boy. Snored. Tianzhenzi sneered and said, who dares to touch you while I'm here? As soon as these words came out, Tianzhenzi secretly felt that something was wrong. Wasn't the previous disciple Takahashi also touched? And he was killed with a sword. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look at Zuyun, who had an innocent look on his face, and then his mind moved and said, boy, I'm here, do you know my name? What? Master of the Heavenly Formation. Zuyun walked down the slope and prostrate directly on the ground, I would like to worship you as my teacher. Master Tianzhen is the #1 person in the Peeper realm. I. The incoherent look made Tianzhenzi feel a little relieved. However, at this time, his vigilance was slightly raised, and he said calmly, "Boy, the first thing you need to do to become your teacher is to abandon distracting thoughts and concentrate on practicing. So, I want to check your storage bag, are you willing?" Zuyun was of course willing and presented the storage bag with both hands very respectfully. Among them, except for some talisman materials, spiritual stones, and ordinary elixirs, there is nothing else. Tianzhenzi also released his spiritual consciousness, and there was nothing he was looking for in the entire wooden house. "Very good, it seems that you are indeed qualified to be my apprentice." Tianzhenzi nodded slightly, threw the storage bag back, and then said, "From now on, you will be called Takahashi. By the way, when the two of them come out, you will say that you are Takahashi. I can keep you safe as a teacher. Stay in the Fire Dragon sect. Do you know?" Zuyun did not expect that Tianzhenzi would take the initiative to help him solve the biggest problem, and he was immediately happy and agreed. At this time, Zhong Jingguo also walked out of the Dozhuan Xinyi formation. Tianzhenzi's eyes narrowed, and he hurried forward. Because the real Gao Qiao's body was still in the pavilion. If he took a few more steps forward, he would be discovered, and then he would not be able to let Zuyun disguise himself. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 513. Fortunately, the pavilion is the center of the Star Movement formation, and Tang Liwen did not reveal it when she left. Takahashi's body was not found, but Tianzhenzi's eager rush and the looming bloody smell in the air aroused Zhong Jingguo's suspicion. "Master Tianzhen, here." Tianzhenzi withdrew his eyes and pretended to be fine. "I had a fight with Tang Liwen and injured her before letting her run away, so Takahashi was slightly injured and has just finished healing." After saying that, he pointed to Zuyun in front of the wooden house. Zhong Jingguo cursed in his heart, "Old man, do you think this sect leader is a fool? Is Takahashi as handsome as this guy?" However, now that there is still time for Qiu Yushin, he dares to be angry but dare not speak out. He can only say, "Did Tang Liwen run away?" "Of course." Tianzhenzi said proudly, "Sect Master Zhong, if I hadn't suppressed her during these 3 hours, how could you have been safe in the formation?" After that, he walked into the formation first and turned around to collect Takahashi's body. Then he waved his hand and removed the cover here, and said, "I broke through the formation directly and found the main formation. Who would have thought that Tang Liwen was bullying my disciple, so I fought with her. How can Tang Liwen be my opponent? She ran away in a hurry, and I hurriedly healed Takahashi. Look, the blood on the ground was from Takahashi. However, Takahashi never showed his true face, so in order to heal him, I had to reveal his true identity." Face. As you know, I am afraid that Takahashi's appearance will be remembered the first time he comes out to practice. He spoke eloquently and talked a lot, which suited Zuyun's wishes. He knew that he was definitely safe now. He has a very good ability to observe faces. Although he doesn't look sideways, he knows that Zhong Jingguo also believes it. Now, the only variable is Lian Nishang. Because Lian Nishang saw his true face when he left the valley. "So that's it," Zhong Jingguo said, "since Master Tianzhen's disciple is fine, Zhong would like to ask, is Tang Liwen injured? Is there any hope of catching up with him at this time? After all, it was a nascent soul stage. Now that he had made enemies, of course he wanted to kill them all. After all, Tang Liwen is just a guest elder. As the saying goes, don't be afraid of thieves stealing, just be afraid of thieves missing you." He killed Tang Liwen and Tang Liwen in revenge without any scruples at all. "Alas," Tianzhenzi said, pretending to be regretful, "it's a pity that Tang Liwen was too fast at that time, and Takahashi was in danger. I was eager to save people, so I let her run away. She didn't suffer much injury. This. Zhong Jingguo looked helpless. Although Tang Liwen could not see anything, he was extremely capable. She has not had many contacts in the past 500 years, which shows that she is no different from ordinary people. If she wants to escape, there will probably be very few people in the Peeper realm who can stop her at this level. Not to mention, in order not to lose face, Tianzhenzi deliberately made the time longer and said it was 3 hours. It seems that it is destiny. Zhong Jingguo sighed, and then said, fortunately, since Tang Liwen is no longer here, the spot can naturally be given to the master of the Tianzhen formation. However, the master needs to follow the contract and find out how to maintain our mountain guarding formation. That's natural. Tianzhenzi also breathed a sigh of relief in his heart and said, this mountain protecting formation will be maintained by my disciple here before the secret realm of the Book of Heaven is opened. When the secret realm is opened, I will hand over the formation map to you. The transaction is considered completed. Zhu Yun felt excited. He didn't expect that he and Tang Liwen had guessed everything. Sure enough, it is a place in the secret realm of the Book of Heaven. At the same time, he was very glad that he stayed. Then it's settled. Zhong Jingguo glanced at Zhu Yun meaningfully. He always felt that something was wrong. Because no matter how much you pretend, a person's eyes will never change. Previously, Takahashi's eyes were somewhat proud and dull. But Zhu Yun looked even more ghostly. But right now, it's not the time to break up. Without the formation map of the mountain protecting formation in hand, he could only be controlled by Tianzhenzi. Sect Master Zhong, don't worry, I have never deceived anyone before. Tianzhenzi said swornly. That's very good. Master of the Tianzhen formation, please release Elder Elixir as well. It's easy to say. It still needs some time. Sect Master Zhong can go about his business on his own. Tianzhenzi thought of the reason in an instant and said, breaking the formation inside the formation is completely different from breaking the formation outside the formation. I'm afraid it will affect Sect Master Zhong. And Tang Liwen has been driven away by me, so Sect Master Zhong doesn't have to worry, right? He had issued an order to expel guests, and he was afraid that he would not be able to break through the Dozhuan Shi formation for a while, which would only add to the jokes. He is indeed strong. Unexpectedly, this sudden change was far beyond his expectation. Because what they cultivate is not a formation path at all. Conceptually, there is a difference. Then we won't disturb Master Tianzhen. Zhong will take the first step. Zhong Jingguo simply walked away and left. Tianzhenzi secretly wiped his cold sweat, and after seeing Zhong Jingguo walking away, he said coldly to Zhu Yun, boy, I want to see what you are capable of. Since you have been studying with Tang Liwen for a long time, in this star-shifting formation, you just break it so that I can know your true ability. It's not in vain that I helped you cover up and got you a lot of benefits. Zhu Yun snickered in his heart, how could he not know what Tianzhenzi was thinking? However, his face still needed to act, so he said seriously, Master, Elder Tang once told me something about this great star-shifting formation. If Elder Elixir is released, the disciples can do it immediately. Oh! A flash of light flashed in Tianzhenzi's eyes, and then he said seriously, boy, you are pretending to be Takahashi now, but you can't reveal any relationship with Tang Liwen. When Elder Dan is released later, remember that it was not you, but remember. Master, of course this disciple knows. Zhu Yun patted his chest, making it clear that Tianzhenzi wanted to take advantage of him, but he pretended not to know and looked grateful. Tianzhenzi was very satisfied and couldn't help but nod his head. In that case, let me show you what you are capable of. Zhu Yun smiled confidently and made a few formations at will. Just a moment later, the thousands of stars in front of Elder Elixir suddenly dispersed. The void immediately returned to the shape of a valley. This is Before Elder Dan could react, he heard Tianzhenzi laughing and saying, "Fellow Daoist Dan, I broke this formation and sect leader Zhong just left. You should go find him quickly." Elder Dan was very suspicious, but seeing that Tang Liwen hadn't been mentioned for a while, he urged him to leave. He didn't know what happened. After looking at Zhu Yun, he raised his hand to Tianzhenzi and left. Chasing all the way to the entrance of the sect master's palace, he happened to see Zhong Jingguigang sitting on the first seat in the palace. "I've met the sect master." Dan Lao shouted loudly outside the hall. Zhong Jingguo's expression changed, and he stood up suddenly. However, he felt a little embarrassed, so he quickly sat down again and said in a deep voice, "Come in." He was very surprised. "I thought that Tianzhenzi had said that it would take some time, but I never thought that it would only take so long to release Elder Elixir. This kind of ability is really much stronger. I don't know if I am inviting a wolf into my house by letting him come to the sect." Mr. Dan stepped forward, crossed the palace door, and held the door open along the way. "Sect Master, what happened? Why didn't I see Tang Liwen? And I also saw a strange boy." After Dan Lao stood still, he asked. Zhong Jingguo shook his head and said, "Tianzhenzi said that Tang Liwen was beaten away by him. I don't know whether it is true or not. Besides, he said that boy was Gao Qiao." Elder Dan obviously didn't believe it and pointed at his eyes. "Sect Master, did you think that we were blind like Tang Liwen that day?" Zhong Jingguo said, "He gave me an explanation, saying that it was to protect Gao Qiao, so he disguised his face. Such ability is not surprising. What I am more concerned about is that Tianzhenzi beat Tang Liwen away. Is it true or not?" According to what he said, when he was trapped in the formation, he broke out of the formation and saw Tang Liwen bullying Gao Qiao, and Gao Qiao was seriously injured. He got angry and fought with Tang Liwen. Together, Tang Liwen was defeated and immediately ran away. But he cared about Gao Qiao's injury and stayed to help him heal. Veteran Dan Zhong Jingguo's words have been read over. Although they are a bit bizarre, there are no loopholes. He couldn't help but frown and said, "Then Sect Master, this matter is just over with." When he first came out, he saw Tianzhenzi looking so proud, obviously he had succeeded. "Forget it, what else can we do? Now we can only hope that Tianzhenzi will act as promised. Otherwise, don't blame me, the Fire Dragon sect, for breaking up with their Tianzhen sect and attacking the Tianzhen sect. Anyway, if you don't stay in the sect, you will have to fight against the Fire Dragon section. What's the use of zone?" Elder Dan didn't care about this matter. After thinking about it carefully, he felt that without Tang Liwen, no one seemed to be able to stop him from catching Huo Qinjue. Therefore, it has no impact on his plan at all. Elder Dan smiled slightly and said, "Now that Tang Liwen is gone, then, I feel that no one will object to the engagement between the young sect leader and Nishang. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 514. Zhong Jingguo's eyes lit up, and he said, "Yes, if that's the case, why not let them get married in advance?" Dan Lao also thought this was a good idea. If they got married now, the two could cultivate their feelings, and then they could take action in the secret realm, which would be more surprising. So he said, "What the sect master said is very true. But you also know that Nichain has been stubborn since childhood, so I'll talk to her first." "That's great," Zhong Jingguo was overjoyed. Didn't he have the same idea as Dan Lao? It's just that neither of them knew that they had already calculated each other. Zhong Jingguo thought that Dan Lao didn't dare. But Dan Lao didn't care. In the Fire Dragon sect, Zhong Jingguo couldn't take action against the younger generation for the sake of face. Besides, Lian Nichain was not an unknown person. If there was any mistake, it would attract the elders of other factions. But in the secret realm of the Heavenly Book, as long as he let her swallow the special realm-breaking pill, as long as she formed a nascent soul, she could kill Zhong Jingguo or not, it was up to her. As long as he gets the Book of Heaven, he doesn't care about the lives of others. Dan Lao left happily, looking like a father whose daughter is about to marry into a good family. Zhong Jingguo quickly took out a sound transmission jade talisman and called Zhong Jiangjao over. Meet father. Zhong Jiangjao's residence was not far from here. After receiving Zhong Jingguo's message, he hurried over. Aoer, I have discussed with Elder Dan, your marriage may have to be brought forward. Zhong Jingguo spoke bluntly, which surprised Zhong Jiangjao. Dad, what happened? Is it related to the distinguished guest of Tianzhen sect? It is related, but it has little to do with you. Dad just wants to tell you that Lian Nishang is impatient and her strength is not weaker than yours. You should be more tolerant of her these days. When you reach the secret realm of the heavenly book, let your sister cooperate with you to take her down in one fell swoop. When you break through the nascent soul realm, who will be your opponent in the secret realm? Dad, is this the urgent matter you are talking about? Zhong Jiangjao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He had indeed been tolerant these days. The only time he got angry was when Xianxia misunderstood Zuyun and took action, forcing him to take action. But at that time, it was for the face of the young master, and there was indeed some emotional dispute. After all, no one could stand it for a disciple of the Foreign Affairs Hall to refute him, the young master. It's an urgent matter, Zhong Jingguo said. Dan Lao is going to persuade Lian Nishang now. Maybe if he fails, she will come to trouble you. You just need to be more tolerant. If there are any problems, just push them to Dad. I don't think she dares to trouble Dad, don't you think? Zhong Jiangjao curled his lips indifferently, but heard Zhong Jingguo say again, the variable is your sister. Do you know why Dad didn't call your sister to come? Dad means your sister is more impatient and may ruin things, so Dad wants to discuss with you to trap your sister in the Fire Dragon Cliff. When the heavenly book secret realm is opened, she will be released and go with you. Dad, should I talk to my little sister? We grew up together since childhood, and she can still listen to me. Zhong Jiangjao has a good relationship with Xianxia. More importantly, Xianxia has a better relationship with Lian Nishang. Xianxia is very important to take down Lian Nishang. Zhong Jingguo shook his head and said, your sister is indeed good, but her self-control is too weak, and Dad is afraid that she will leak the news. So, listen to Dad. Call her here now, and I will trap her in one fell swoop, and then send her to Hualong Cliff in person. This girl, if she doesn't temper her character, when will she reach the nascent soul stage? Seeing his father's determination, Zhong Jiangjao knew that he had no choice but to agree and go to find Xianxia. On the other side, Dan Lao also returned to Dan Pavilion and found Lian Nishang, who was a little dazed in the house. Seeing Dan Lao with a smile on his face and no figure of Zuyun beside him, his heart suddenly relaxed. Master, you are back. Nishang, why are you so happy? Tell me so that I can be happy too. Dan Lao asked with a smile. Master, I'm afraid that you and the second master will fight. You look like nothing happened. Why, do you still hope that master has a relationship with Elder Tang? Dan Lao laughed, then his face darkened and he said, Nichang, there is bad news, you have to be prepared. What bad news? Lian Nichang was shocked. Your second master is gone, she left the Fire Dragon sect without saying a word. Ah, why is this happening? Lian Nichang was shocked. She hadn't learned enough skills yet, why did she leave? She couldn't help but stare at Dan Lao, wondering if he had forced her to leave. But he never expected that Elder Dan was even more indignant than him, and he lowered his voice and roared, it's the sect master. The sect master colluded with the people of the Heavenly Array sect and drove Elder Tang away. The purpose was to take the quota for entering the heavenly book secret realm from Elder Tang. Why is it like this? Lian Nishang is a straightforward person, and she never hides her joys, anger, sorrows, and joys in her heart. She immediately burst into tears and began to sob. What else could it be for? Elder Dan clenched his fists and trembled uncontrollably, saying, "They may just want to force a marriage." You also know that under the pressure of the sect master, the master agreed to his proposal for the young sect master. But what kind of person is the young sect master? The master doesn't know it. Do you think that the master asked you to break through the nascent soul in the heavenly book secret realm to obtain the treasure? It's to let you stay in the secret realm and never have trouble again. Lian Nishang nodded with tears in his eyes. Elder Dan had indeed told him that if he didn't want to become Zhong Jiangjiao's Taoist companion, the only chance was to kill him directly after breaking through in the secret realm. Anyway, the sky and the earth are vast there. As long as you find a secret place, who knows? And there is no proof. My teacher guesses that they colluded with outsiders to seize the quota. Then, in the secret realm, they will threaten you with 3 enemies and 1. I don't know, Zhong Jiangjiao is more likely to use his bow to take away your body. In these words, Mr. Dan was a little embellished, but he hit the nail on the head. Nothing but to deepen Lian Nishang's hatred so that she can get the treasure for herself. So, Nishang, Dan Lao said with a heartbroken look, I have no choice but to use people to refine the elixir. Isn't it for you to break through the nascent soul and retreat safely from the secret realm? Can you take the treasure? It's just a way of doing it. The most important thing is to see if you are willing to kill them. As a teacher, don't force it. Lian Nishang didn't dare to doubt Elder Dan. Because it makes sense. Also, the sect master saw that Elder Tang had run away and knew that no one would support you, so he asked you to marry the young sect master in advance. I came here to ask your opinion. But now, you can only I feel aggrieved for now. This is the real bad news. At this time, Lian Nishang had stopped crying, and his eyes were full of hatred. She has a good relationship with Tang Liwen, and Tang Liwen specially taught Zuyun her skills for her safety in the secret realm. Although Tang Liwen's goal is to protect the treasure, the first priority is to protect herself. As for retrieving the treasure, Tang Liwen also made it clear that it was to heal her eyes. Lian Nishang understood very well. But now that she knew that Tang Liwen had been driven away, the only person she could rely on now was Elder Dan. Involuntarily, I trusted the words of Elder Di. It is true that no matter how much Dan Lao wanted to take advantage of her, he never showed it. This is a treacherous and cunning person. At this time, Elijah has played with people's hearts to the extreme. Lian Nishang wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes and said, Master, how is Huo Qinjua doing now? Ignition. Elder Dan pondered for a moment, shook his head, and said, Huo Qinjua may have been taken away by Tang Liwen. I have never seen him in the valley. You know, the valley is occupied by Tianzhenzi at this time. How can it be possible to return to the mountain? Will there be an ordinary monk left? Lian Nishang relaxed slightly and then said, Master, how to refine your special realm-breaking pill? Elder Dan's eyes narrowed and he said, there is no other way. I only have less than a year left, so I can only leave the sect to find materials to replace it. I promise you, I won't use people to practice, but monsters after all. Hearing this, Lian Nishang nodded immediately. Okay, Elder Dan clapped his hands and said, I will leave the mountain immediately as my master. However, you need to pay attention to catering to the young sect master as much as possible during these days. All grudges will be repaid in the secret realm of the Book of Heaven. In this way, go as a teacher. After saying that, Elder Dan immediately walked away and soon arrived at the sect master's palace. At this time, Zhong Jiangjiao went to find Xianxia, while Zhong Jingguo remained in the palace. Sect master, What I said to Nisheng is almost the same. However, I used a little trick and said that I wanted to leave the clan to work. When the time comes, she will have no one to rely on, so she will definitely agree and let the young sect leader return with the beauty. Ha ha ha, so good. Zhong Jingguo patted the chair and stood up. The two looked at each other and smiled, but neither one knew what the other was really laughing at. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 515. At this time, in the valley, Tianzhenzu repeatedly tried to test Zhu Yun's words. Although he had been deceived by Zhu Yun's superb acting skills, that only proved that Zhu Yun was trapped here by Tang Liwen. Tianzhenzu's taking in disciples was secondary, and the main thing was to get the heavenly book in the heavenly book secret realm. Then, he had to find out more about Zhu Yun's bottom line. Fortunately, Zhu Yun had done this kind of thing a lot, and as long as he integrated it a little, 3 parts true and 7 parts false, he could easily deceive Tianzhenzu. I didn't expect that you were from Yezhu. Tianzhenzu was very surprised. Zhu Yun said a little stiffly, Master, Elder Tang told his disciples that people from Yezhu are not welcome in Peepa realm, so. Tianzhenzu interrupted Zhu Yun and said, but what I didn't expect was that Tang Liwen was also from Yezhu. This was said by Zhu Yun on purpose, in order to shift the focus to Tang Liwen. Anyway, Tang Liwen had already left, and it was basically impossible for her to have any intersection with Tianzhenzu. Even if there is, it is estimated that it will be a long time later, and it will not have any impact on Zhu Yun's entry into the heavenly book secret realm. Yes, Master, I know the descendants of Elder Tang, and I have learned some of their Tang family's array magic, so I was hidden here by Elder Tang. Tianzhenzu nodded slightly. During the trial process, Zhu Yun did have a unique understanding of the array, which was completely different from their Tianzhen sect. But it can be admitted that Zhu Yun's foundation is very good, which also made Tianzhenzu believe Zhu Yun's words. And the most important thing is that Zhu Yun simply told Tianzhenzu that Tang Liwen originally planned to leave the Fire Dragon sect and leave him to maintain the mountain protection array. Such words made Tianzhenzu believe Zhu Yun even more. This valley is a formation I of the Fire Dragon sect's mountain protection array, I will take you to have a look. Sect Master Zhong gave me a formation card to enter and exit the main formation I of the mountain protection array. Tianzhenzu didn't want to stay here too long, thinking about resolving the matter as soon as possible and returning to Tianzhen Mountain. As for Zhu Yun staying here, he naturally has a way to restrict him. Yes, Master. Zhu Yun followed Tianzhenzu. Tianzhenzu took out a metal token with a fire dragon engraved on it from his arms and walked towards the other side of the valley. As he walked, he said, I need to draw the formation diagram of the mountain protection formation. You will stand beside me at that time and don't walk around. Otherwise, if the mountain guardian beast gets angry, I can't save you. When you get the treasure in the secret realm of the heavenly book, I will really accept you as my disciple and teach you the supreme formation of the heavenly array section. Do you remember? Although he has accepted Zhu Yun as a registered disciple, after some investigation, he feels that Zhu Yun's strength is completely enough in the secret realm of the heavenly book. He also told him that when he leaves the secret realm, he will come to pick up Zhu Yun in person, so don't worry. Only then will he accept Zhu Yun as a real inner disciple. But before that, he needs to fulfill the agreement with Zhong Jingguo first. Yes, Master. Tang Liwen had told Zhu Yun everything about the valley. This valley is actually a canyon. The other end leads directly to the center of the mountain protection formation. However, it will pass through the habitat of the mountain guardian beast. Tang Liwen said that this is a fire dragon that has lived for who knows how many years. It has a violent temper. Only those holding the formation order of the fire dragon sect can pass safely. In the entire sect, there are only 3 people who have the formation order. The piece of Zhong Jingguo is in Tianzhenzu's hands at this time. Another piece was taken away by a retreating Supreme Elder. The last piece is in Tang Liwen's hands. She has handed it over to Zhu Yun. However, Zhu Yun kept a watchful eye and threw it in the fairy house. This is also one of the reasons why Tianzhenzi wanted to search Zhu Yun's storage bag at that time. However, each formation order can bring one person. As long as they are not too far away, the fire dragon will not take the initiative to her people. The two walked at a fast pace. After walking for about a cup of tea, they arrived at a huge crack in the ground. There was a cable bridge made of black iron on the crack. When the two passed by, Zhu Yun felt the extremely pure fire spirit power coming from below, and his heart was moved. If the fire spirit bead absorbs the fire spirit power here, I don't know what will happen. The crack in the ground doesn't look too deep, that's because of the magma of the ground fire. Bubbles and heat are constantly coming out of the surface of the magma, and from time to time, there are magma surges caused by the bursting of bubbles. Zhu Yun just felt like he was back in the Chuzhu volcano. Except that the fire spirit power is more pure. No wonder the fire dragon sect established its sect here. How can this be compared with the Chuzhu ground veins? I think so. This fire dragon sect was built by a great predecessor in the spiritual world. With a sigh in his heart, Zhu Yun raised his head. Unexpectedly, the magma suddenly surged, and boundless fire power gushed out instantly. Accompanied by the sound of a dragon roar, a giant dragon rushed out from under the magma. The temperature around rose rapidly, and Tianzhenzi also hurriedly stopped and signaled Zhu Yun not to move. When the huge head of the fire dragon rushed to the parallel of the iron chain bridge, Tianzhenzi had already taken the formation order in his hand. And Zhu Yun was horrified. Isn't it rumored that this mountain guardian beast has not reached the realm of the Demon King? Why is this breath so huge at this time? Not only that, he can't feel a trace of demon power at all. Could it be that this fire dragon is a spirit beast? Zhu Yun's breathing was stagnant. He didn't ask Tang Liwen about the fire dragon because he had never had any idea about the fire dragon. That might be the case, and because the incident happened in a hurry, Tang Liwen didn't have time to tell him about the fire dragon. At this moment, Zhu Yun secretly miscalculated. Fortunately, it was not his idea to go to the center of the mountain protection formation this time, nor did it mess up his plan. Who are you? The fire dragon suddenly transformed and turned into a human form. With a domineering aura, it landed on the chain bridge and stopped in front of the two of them. He could definitely feel that Zhu Yun and Tianzhenzi's strength would not be taken seriously by him during the Dan formation stage, so that sharp gaze was just staring at Tianzhenzi. I'll be there for a while. Facing the fire dragon whose aura was even stronger than his own, Tianzhenzi also looked alertly. For a moment, he wondered if Zhong Jingguo was plotting against him. Tianzhenzi? Why did the leader of the Tianzhen sect go to the center of the mountain protecting formation? The fire dragon said in a deep voice. Sect Master Zhong asked me to draw the formation diagram of the mountain protecting formation. Otherwise, how could I get this formation order? As he spoke, he moved his hand forward, and the formation command flew directly towards the fire dragon. The fire dragon glanced at it, remained silent for a moment, and then threw the formation order back. Then, he climbed over the iron bridge and jumped straight into the crack in the ground. Then the voice came from afar, if I find you acting rashly in the formation, don't blame me for being rude. I can't do that. Tianzhenzi replied stiffly. It seems that he is looking for face, but in fact he is at a disadvantage. Zhu Yun shrank his neck and did not dare to say anything for fear of offending Tianzhenzi. Tianzhenzi's face was ashen as he led Zhu Yun forward. After crossing the iron bridge and turning a hill, I finally saw countless complicated formations. Tianzhenzi then said, after I draw the formation diagram, I will take it directly back to Tianzhen sect. If Zhong Jingguo asks for it from you, you will say that I took him away, do you understand? He was in a bad mood, and his description of Zuyun also changed. With such trivial details, Zuyun keenly guessed that Tianzhenzi was actually taking advantage of him. Fortunately, he never believed in the heavenly formation. He wants to stay in the Fire Dragon sect, he wants to go to the secret realm of the heavenly book, and he wants to seize the heavenly book. Yes, Master. Zuyun said respectfully without asking any questions. In fact, asking or not would not help him at all. Snort. Tianzhenzi snorted coldly, stood still, and began to look at the formations of the mountain protecting formation. This is a huge open space. In the very center is the main formation eye of the mountain protecting formation. Starting from the main formation eye, fiery red formation patterns extend in all directions like a giant tree spreading its branches and leaves. Zuyun just glanced at it for a few moments and stopped paying too much attention. He has a formation order. Even if the mountain protection formation is activated, he can get out of the formation safely. As for maintenance, Tang Liwen also said that the last maintenance was 3 years later. And he will be leaving in a year, and it will be of little use whether he learns or not. On the contrary, Tianzhenzi was immersed in his thoughts at this moment, and he was happy to start arranging future plans. For example, the Fire Dragon, a spiritual beast equivalent to the Demon King realm. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 516. Although the fire dragon was facing Tianzhenzi just now, Zuyun also felt the unmatched fire power on him. He couldn't make a mistake in the realm of the Demon King. Moreover, the fire dragon also turned into a human form. If there is a chance to defeat him, I wonder if the fire dragon sect can walk sideways. Zuyun couldn't help thinking. If he could learn their alchemy and weapon-making methods in the fire dragon sect, it wouldn't be considered that he had suffered such a great injustice. However, from this point of view, it seems impossible. He and Tang Liwen took a risky move, and it was good enough to survive, and there was also a chance to enter the secret realm of the heavenly book. When Zuyun recalled it now, he felt that he was too brave. Looking at Tianzhenzi beside him, his mind was immersed in it, and Zuyun forcibly restrained the idea of a sneak attack. He could only endure it. At this time, a light and shadow passed through the mountain gate and flew straight into the sect master's hall. Seeing this scene, Zhong Jingguo suddenly stood up from his seat. Grand Elder, what happened to you? The shadow was the Grand Elder who had returned from his nascent soul. Sect Master, Yao Wuxi attacked without explanation. And his strength is several times stronger than what is said in Peeper Realm. The Grand Elder's face was distorted, and he said with hatred. What? You are also in the peak of the late nascent soul, how could you be beaten like this? Zhong Jingguo looked incredulous. He knew the Grand Elder's strength very well. He was not much weaker than himself. But he was already like this. Zhong Jingguo thought about it and felt that he might not be his opponent. The Grand Elder's nascent soul spoke again, which made him sweat coldly. Sect Master, Yao Wuxi still fought with injuries. If not, I'm afraid I wouldn't even be able to return from my nascent soul. Zhong Jingguo exclaimed, how is this possible? But then, he thought of something even more terrifying. Such a strong person was injured, so who hurt him? Who was it? Suddenly, the master's hall fell into a strange silence. One person and one infant just looked at each other without saying anything. For a long while. Zhong Jingguo said, where are the other 2 elders? They are all dead. Zhong Jingguo sat back on the main seat dejectedly. If all the ordinary disciples died, he could still get away with it. But 2 of the 3 Yuanying stage died, and the other was crippled. If the other 2 factions united, I'm afraid his position as the master would be over. Master, what should we do now? The great elder asked. We can only keep it a secret for now. The other people in the sect are still waiting for the situation of the demon control saint sect. Zhong Jingguo took a deep breath and continued, so, you can't show your body. By the way, have you been discovered since you entered the sect? No, I specially used the method of concealing my breath. I knew that the matter was of great importance, so I didn't go anywhere else and came directly to tell you the situation. Hearing this, Zhong Jingguo's eyes flashed with a gleam of light, and suddenly he raised his hand, and a ray of fire rushed out from his hand. Sect Master. The face of the great elder changed drastically. How could he not know that Zhong Jingguo wanted to kill people to silence them? In a flash, he quickly fled to the outside of the sect master's hall. Little did he know that Zhong Jingguo was cruel and decisive. The great elder was not weak in strength. If he was given some breathing space, he would definitely threaten himself and let him reshape his body. In this way, it would definitely reveal clues in the sect. During this period, the sect was also a little nervous and struggling. I thought I could hold on for a year, and wait until my son took away Lian Nishang's Yuanyin and broke through the nascent soul stage, then I would have the confidence to speak again. But obviously, what happened was extremely unfavorable to him. Only if the elder died could he win a chance. Once, he could not become the master of the sect. Elder Dan would definitely tear up the engagement. When Zhong Jiangjao lost himself as a backer, he would not have the chance to become a nascent soul. Not to mention, there is also the treasure of the heavenly book secret realm. Under such circumstances, Zhong Jiangjao sacrificed his spiritual fire. The elder knew the power of this fire, and the anger alone had broken his mind. Spiritual fire is the natural nemesis of this kind of spirit body. He has no body, and he has no chance to resist except running. Want to run? Not that easy. Chijiyan, let him see how powerful you are. Zhong Jingguo waved his hand to lay a ban, in order to delay the elder's escape, so that Chijiyan could burn up. This is heavenly fire. The elder slapped his palm back, and a flame spurted out from his white and tender little hand. But this fire was just an ordinary fire. His spiritual fire had already been dispersed when his body was destroyed. This extremely blazing flame was even stronger than his earthly fire. The elder was caught off guard, and was burned by the extremely blazing flame just one step behind. Ah! After shouting in surprise, he screamed. The shrill scream penetrated the master's hall and spread throughout the fire dragon sect. Instantly, countless nascent souls rushed here. They were sensitive, and they only focused their minds and realized the spiritual power level here, which was the work of the nascent soul. Two nascent soul spiritual powers, one of which was the master's, and the other was the elder's. They were originally competing in secret with the three sects, and now they found out who would not come to join in the fun. If there is a chance, Zhong Jingguo will be driven down from the position of the master. And all this, the two people in the mountain guarding formation in the depths have no idea. Tianzhenzi has already drawn half of the array diagram. Zuyun was thinking about whether he could decorate the valley after Tianzhenzi left, so as to gain time to practice in less than a year. He has all the materials needed for the talisman in Tao of Talisman, so he can start painting it. Although Tang Liwen taught him the technique of drawing spiritual talismans, Zuyun felt that his skills were still shallow. Although they are both talismans, they are obviously not on the same level, and I may not be able to grasp them. Unless his attainments in talismans could no longer improve, he would be able to try to break through from the spiritual talismans. In addition, Zuyun also plans to find an opportunity to meet Lian Nishang and communicate with her, so as not to have Lian Nishang call him Huo Qinjue in front of others. If so, he will die without a burial place. After Tianzhenzi left, he could only rely on himself for everything. In addition, He also planned to use Lian Nishang's position in the Fire Dragon sect to find a way to absorb some fire spiritual power into the Fire Spirit Pearl in case of emergency. There are also shackles engraved on his Chaos Seed. If he enters the secret realm of the Book of Heaven to fight, and encounters some supreme magical powers that can restrain the golden elixir, he will have the power to fight back and be surprised. In other words, he can't slack off in this year. He knew very little about the secret realm of the Book of Heaven. But after traveling a long distance from Xianxia to get a spot, the competition inside was fierce. The Fire Dragon sect has 4 quotas, but what about the other sects? About half an hour later, Xianxia had memorized all the mountain protecting formations. It's time to go. Xianxia glanced at Zuyun with a warning tone. Yes, Master. Zuyun quickly followed and asked curiously, Master, don't you draw a formation diagram? I have memorized the formation pattern of this formation, and it won't be too late to return to the Heaven Formation sect painting. When I get back to the valley, it's time for me to leave. You have to take care of yourself here. Have you remembered it? Disciple remembers it. Zuyun said hurriedly. Now, he wished he could drive this old guy away. When they passed the chain bridge again, the fire dragon did not appear again. However, both of them felt that there was a chi machine locked on them. It wasn't until they safely passed the chain bridge that the air machine disappeared. Zuyun glanced at Xianxia carefully and found that he was relieved, and secretly guessed in his heart whether Zhong Jingguo could summon the fire dragon. Just as he was thinking this, there was a sudden violent vibration in the crack. Before they could react, the fire dragon roared. As soon as the sound arrived, the huge body of the fire dragon rushed out from the crack in the ground. Xianxia was shocked and turned pale. He took out a magic weapon from his arms and took a few steps back to prepare for the attack. He didn't care about Zuyun at all. But they never thought that the fire dragon didn't even look at them and just rushed straight into the sky. After rushing out of the valley, he quickly changed direction, turned into a human form, and flew towards the sect master's palace. Something happened to the fire dragon sect. Xianxia exclaimed, threw Zuyun on the spot, and left in a flash. Zuyun watched Xianxia disappear from sight, and his heart surged. The fire dragon is the sacred beast that protects the mountain. It even went out. Could it be a conflict with the demon-controlling sect? When he thought of this, Zuyun couldn't help but wanted to take a look. But is this the right time? After thinking for a few breaths, Zuyun ducked into the immortal mansion and took out all the talismans he had obtained from Zhen Wengxiu at that time. The talisman of changing the world is gone, and there is only one invisibility talisman left. It is related to whether I can stay in the fire dragon sect safely, and it is also related to whether I am qualified to go to the secret realm of the Book of Heaven. Zuyun's pupils shrank and he put the invisibility charm on his forehead. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 517. Just as Zuyun was walking out of the valley, a fiery red figure suddenly rushed over. Huo Qinjue, Huo Qinjue. Lian Nishang yelled and almost bumped into the invisible Zuyun. She didn't know Zuyun's real name yet. Fortunately, she habitually stood still at the entrance of the valley. After all, in the past, she had to ask Tang Liwen to open the array gate for her before she could enter. Zuyun was entangled. Should he go to see the excitement over there, or stop and talk to Lian Nishang first? There was only one invisibility talisman left. If he showed his figure, he would not be able to see the excitement later. After thinking about it, Zuyun decided to be safer. Lian Nishang was a crucial link, and he had to let her cooperate with him. Thinking of this, he pinched a formation formula in his hand. The array gate opened immediately, and Lian Nishang was in a daze, and Zuyun suddenly pulled her into the valley. Lian Nishang was horrified and immediately cast a spell. A blazing fire quickly ignited on the fiery red protective robe. Zuyun tore off the invisibility talisman on his forehead and said anxiously, "It's me. Huo Qinjue, are you okay?" Lian Nishang was surprised. Zuyun was afraid that Lian Nishang's voice would be heard outside the valley, so he covered her mouth with his hand and closed the array gate. "Keep your voice down," he scolded in a low voice. Lian Nishang opened her eyes wide and nodded. Zuyun then relaxed and asked, "Why are you here? I heard from the master what happened here. He said that you were taken away by the second master, but I thought something was wrong. You are only in the middle stage of Jindan, which is weaker than my strength. If the second master takes you with him, it will be a burden." Lian Nishang said, "I took advantage of the fight in the sect master's hall just now and came to see it. By the way, did you see the guardian beast come out?" She was telling the truth. The sect was so noisy, and the old Dan also said that he would leave the sect to do things. She thought that no one could control her, so she rushed here. It was not long before entering the valley that she saw the fire dragon rising into the sky. However, she was thinking of Zuyun and did not notice that the fire dragon had turned into a human form. "I have seen him," Zuyun said. "I have something to tell you. You should hurry back to Dan Pavilion and hide." "Ah!" Lian Nishang was stunned. She didn't know why Zuyun was so anxious. Then she heard him say, "I am pretending to be Tianzhen's disciple. I don't know if he will come over later. So, don't pretend to know me in the sect, understand?" Lian Nishang saw Zuyun's serious expression and nodded repeatedly. Zuyun's tone slowed down a little and said, "Wait until Tianzhen's leaves, then you can find me. I guess everything will be fine. But, what about your engagement with Zhong Jiangjao? In my opinion, Zhong Jiangjao must have some intentions." Speaking of this, Lian Nishang remembered the haha that Dan Lao said to him, so she said bluntly, "Master Zun told me before he left that I should be patient for the time being. When I reach the secret realm of the heavenly book and I have formed a pill and become an infant, I can kill him." After that, a trace of reluctance flashed in her eyes. After all, they grew up together in cultivation. Although Lian Nishang is overbearing, she is not as cruel as the immortal world and is kind-hearted. Zuyun thought for a while and said, "In that case, let's go into the secret realm first. Tianzhenzi gave me Ant Tang's quota, and I will enter the secret realm of the heavenly book at that time. Maybe Zhong Jiangjao will come to win me over soon. Anyway, in the secret realm, you can pretend not to know me. And I can also test Zhong Jiangjiao's attitude. Okay, I'll listen to you." Lian Nishang had no opinion at this time, indicating that everything would be arranged by Zuyun. After explaining some things, Zuyun asked, "By the way, Dan Lao can still let you break through the nascent soul in the secret realm, did he find a replacement?" Lian Nishang shook her head and said, "Master said to find a replacement monster. I think it should be in the 10,000 mountains." Zuyun's heart tightened, but then relaxed. Tang Liwen left first, so they probably wouldn't run into each other. Don't run into them when Qiu Qi is leading the way. "Huo Qinjue, what's wrong with you?" Lian Nishang still couldn't change her words. "It's okay, and Tang also went to the 10,000 mountains, I hope they don't run into each other." After hearing what Zuyun said, Lian Nishang asked, "Do you know where the second master went?" "I know, but I can't tell you." The matter was of great importance, and Lian Nishang was not very thoughtful. Zuyun was afraid that she would be tricked and let the cat out of the bag. When Lian Nishang was about to beg Zuyun to tell him, a huge explosion sounded from the direction of the sect master's hall. The two of them looked up and saw thick smoke billowing on the top of the mountain, and several figures kept shuttling back and forth. Fighting. The two were startled, and after looking at each other, Zuyun said anxiously, "Fairy Lian, you go back first. After I settle down here, I will go out to find you. You should also practice in Dan Pavilion with peace of mind during this period. Then you, Take care of yourself. Lian Nishang also knew that she couldn't stay here for long. Such a big commotion must have been caused by the nascent soul stage. Leaving a word, she left in a hurry. Zuyun thought about it and retreated to the pavilion. He believed that Tianzhenzi would definitely come back to tell him. At this time, the sect master hall had been destroyed by the battle. The black smoke just now was Zhong Jingguo's full-strength attack. The second elder of the opposing faction also fought hard to catch up. Two shocking spiritual powers collided and directly destroyed the sect master's palace. Zhong Jingguo, you are going to destroy our fire dragon sect. The second elder's eyes widened with anger, and there were blood stains on the corners of his mouth. It was obvious that he was seriously injured. Looking at Zhong Jingguo, he is not much better. Back in the past, he used heavenly fire to burn the great elder's nascent soul to death, but inevitably the great elder screamed in agony, which attracted more than 10 nascent soul stage members from the sect to come here. The second elder came the fastest. Zhong Jingguo had just put away the sky fire, thinking that his trump card would not be discovered, but he did not expect that the second elder did not say anything and directly attacked. If it weren't for Zhong Jingguo's strength, he would have died here. Because of this, the two started fighting. Seeing more and more fellow disciples coming, Zhong Jingguo made a prompt decision and immediately summoned the fire dragon in the name of the sect leader. But I never thought that Huo Jiao saw that it was a fight within the family and just ignored it. However, he did not leave just like that, but stood beside Tianzhenzi intentionally or unintentionally, as a spectator. Under this situation, the two of them started fighting, each using their magical powers. When Zhong Jingguo killed the first elder nascent soul, he consumed a lot of spiritual power in order to make it quick. The second elder also wounded him in a sneak attack. Comparing the two, they are also inseparable. But after all, Zhong Jingguo is in the position of the sect leader, has mastered the sect leader's unique inheritance, and is more powerful. Even if he didn't use the sky fire, he was gradually gaining the upper hand. Second elder, you couldn't help but sneak attack on me. How dare you say that I destroyed the fire dragon sect? You broke the rules first and should be executed. Zhong Jingguo squinted his eyes. He knew that he had destroyed the corpse and wiped out the traces at most, he would only be seen by the second elder. The other elders, even though they clearly sensed the aura of the great elder, did not see it in time. Under this situation, Zhong Jingguo planned to refuse to admit it. He even wanted to put all the blame on the second elder. After all, with all the nascent souls here, his sect leader's faction is the strongest. Unless, the neutralists and the opposition can unite. But with the fire dragon here and Tianzhenzi cooperating with him, Zhong Jingguo felt that he had a chance to win and believed that the others would not dare to attack him. Then, I can safely get rid of the thorn in the side of the second elder. Then, kill the chicken to scare the monkeys. Which monkey dares to jump? The reason why Zhong Jingguo thinks so is because the fire dragon is standing in the sky. He thought that when Tianzhenzi was going from the valley to the main formation of the mountain guarding formation, he would pass by the habitat of the fire dragon. He thought that this was how they knew each other. And Tianzhenzi is an ally. Zhong Jingguo, you violated the sect's rules by killing the sect's great elder. Do you dare to say that the person you just killed was not the sect's great elder Yan Hongchang? As soon as these words came out, everyone stared at Zhong Jingguo's face. The second elder. This is to force the palace. But, aren't your intentions too obvious? Everyone knows that the great elder is from the Zhong Jingguo faction. You, an opposition faction, forced the palace in public, and we didn't see it with our own eyes. Do you think Zhong Jin will admit it? All the elders from the neutral faction took a step back. The sect leader secretly despised him, thinking that the second elder must be crazy for wanting to be the sect leader. As for the opposition faction, they shook their heads secretly, feeling that the second elder's death was probably in vain this time. but who knows? Zhong Jingguo showed a strange smile. Yes, the one I killed was Yan Hongchang. Suddenly, the whole place was silent, and then there was an uproar. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 518. Not only all the elders were surprised, but also Tianzhenzi and the fire dragon who transformed into a human. Although the internal struggles of these people had nothing to do with them. But when Zhong Jingguo admitted it in public, it was a completely different meaning. A strange color flashed in the eyes of the second elder. He couldn't understand why Zhong Jingguo admitted it, which made him a little overwhelmed. Who would have thought that Zhong Jingguo would say something shocking? Second elder, the reason why the sect master wants to kill Yan Hongchang is because you colluded with Yan Hongchang and let the disciples of the Internal Affairs Hall go to die. Hearing this false accusation of Ziwu, the second elder immediately said angrily, "You are slandering me. Last time, the disciple who supported the ordinary elder Yan Laoxi was your man, right? Did he say that Yan Laoxi died at the hands of Yuz Haibai, the acting sect master of the Yao Saint sect?" The second elder's face was gloomy, and he said, "Yes, that was one of my direct disciples. But if you want to accuse someone, you can always find a pretext. If you use this, it is a bit far-fetched." When Zhong Jingguo admitted that he killed Yan Hongchang, he had already made all preparations. He looked around, and then said in a cold voice, "All the elders are here, so I won't hide anything. The elder is one of my direct descendants, and in the Fire Dragon sect, he is also the leader of all the elders. But why did he come back with only a nascent soul when he was at the peak of the late nascent soul stage? The Demon Control Saint sect only has 3 nascent souls. Even if they have monsters to help them, Yan Hongchang won't come back like this. You might as well think about it, under what circumstances, it is possible to force the nascent soul of the elder of our Fire Dragon sect to escape." All the people were silent. Although it sounded like Zhong Jingguo's conjecture. But what he said was not unreasonable. To deal with Yan Hongchang, who is a well-known and powerful person in the Peepa realm, those of the same realm who want to destroy his physical body can only sneak attack. He went to the Demon Control Saint sect to ask for punishment. If he had taken precautions, he would not have suffered such a fate. Then the only explanation is that Yan Hongchang did collude with the Demon Control Saint sect. But the Demon Control Saint sect took advantage of this to launch a sneak attack. Zhong Jingguo said this because no one knew the true strength of Yao Wuxi. Even he didn't know this until he learned from Yan Hongchang that Yao Wuxi fought with injuries and suppressed him. Even the leader of his sect didn't know, let alone the other elders. Seeing that everyone was lost in thought, including elders from the same faction, the second elder's face quickly darkened. Originally, he still had the upper hand, but now, he was doomed. Yes, why did Yan Hongchang escape with only his nascent soul? At this moment, an old man who was also at the peak of the late nascent soul stage suddenly stood up and asked loudly, "Then may I ask the sect master, what happened to the disciples of the Internal Affairs Hall who went with us?" Zhong Jingguo looked heartbroken, holding his chest, and said in a sad voice, "Third elder, as far as I know, all the disciples were killed or injured. Including the 2 nascent soul stage Internal Affairs Chief and Deputy Hall Masters. If not, how could I be angry with the Great Elder?" He pretended to be so, just because the third elder was the leader of the neutral faction. When this was said, everyone looked incredible. Hundreds of people. Just, gone. They are the backbone of the Fire Dragon sect. The sect fight is not about the realm and number of the nascent soul stage. When you reach this realm, it is usually to pursue the next realm. The fight is usually left to the core forming stage. This is why, although the Yao Saint sect has only 3 Yuanying stages, it can stand in the Peepa realm and even claim the Wood Spirit Holy Mountain as its own. Unless it is a revenge for the extermination of the sect, it has reached the point of life and death. Otherwise, the Yuanying stage will never take action easily. This is also the unwritten rule of the Peepa realm. For a moment, everyone's eyes were on the second elder. If what the sect master said was true, then the second elder really offended the public. Indeed, people from the opposing faction did not believe that the second elder would do this. Even people from the sect master's faction did not believe it. But obviously, no one could justify the second elder's death at this time. The second elder also saw this clearly. While everyone was not reacting, he suddenly attacked. Zhong Jingguo, I want to kill you. Before he finished speaking, he changed his body shape and quickly turned into a huge fireman. His body shook, and the fireman came out of his body and rushed towards Zhong Jingguo. Second elder, do you still want to resist at this point? Zhong Jingguo sneered in his heart, but his hand quickly raised. The chicken came out, so it was time for him to show his true ability and kill him for these monkeys to see. Extreme blazing flame. As soon as the heavenly fire came out, all the elders who were watching took a breath of cold air. Even the fire dragon had a flash of strange color in his eyes. A spiritual beast like him could naturally recognize that the extreme blazing flame was heavenly fire. Tianzhenzi was also knowledgeable. How could such spiritual creatures not know? He thought that Zhong Jingguo was just a mediocre peak of the late nascent soul. But he didn't expect that there was a spiritual creature like heavenly fire. If an ordinary cultivator of the same realm had heavenly fire, Tianzhenzi would not take it seriously. But Zhong Jingguo was the leader of the Fire Dragon sect. He was good at fire, and the sect was even better at fire. Heavenly fire. The second elder was also extremely shocked and screamed, your earth fire has advanced. You know it not too late. Zhong Jingguo grinned, and Xianxia had already blasted the second elder's fire giant apart, and quickly absorbed the fire power. Seeing that the sky fire was about to rush in front of him, the second elder gritted his teeth and flicked his sleeves. This is the earth fire. The second elder has nurtured the earth fire for nearly 1,000 years. What a pity. As soon as the last person said the word what a pity, Xianxia suddenly turned around, turned into a villain, and swallowed the earth fire directly. Unexpectedly, this was the second elder's plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain. You can't catch the wolf without sacrificing the child. He made a prompt decision without any hesitation and teleported away. Want to run? Zhong Jingguo sneered, waved his hand, and said, did you see it? The second elder is going to flee for fear of crime. I, Zhong Jingguo, issue the first order of the sect master since I took office. Everyone, arrest the traitor. At this time, no one dared to disobey Zhong Jingguo's intention, and they all teleported and went to encircle the second elder. But the second elder was already in a strong state. The only one who could match him here was the third elder. Even if the second elder sacrificed his own earth fire, his own strength was unquestionable. Get out of here. With a loud shout, the second elder's magical power was fully displayed. In order to escape, he did not hesitate to burn his blood. But Zhong Jingguo had already calculated this step, and immediately said to Tianzhenzi, thank you, Master Tianzhen, for using the formation order to let the mountain protection formation trap him. Tianzhenzi came to his senses, but he was unwilling to participate in this matter, and actually threw the formation order back to Zhong Jingguo. It means to let him do it himself. As for himself, he was just watching the fun. If Zhong Jingguo died or lost power, he would need to reconsider his cooperation with the Fire Dragon sect. But now, the second elder has escaped, and the Fire Dragon sect is in chaos, which is actually beneficial to him. Not to mention, he was selfish at this time and wished that the second elder could escape. It was because of this delay that when Zhong Jingguo activated the mountain protection formation, the second elder had already escaped from Fire Dragon Mountain. A group of Yuanying kept flashing in the air. In the air, spiritual power surged, scaring a group of younger disciples. All of them trembled. Even this momentum has alarmed a cultivator not far away. He looked up and saw a scene that he shouldn't have seen. Is the fire dragon section? Something's going to happen? Then I, Wuchideo, will come over to join in the fun. I just don't know if I can fish in troubled waters and steal the ice spirit grass that has been stored for thousands of years. That's right, it was Wuchideo who had just recovered from being injured by Zhu Yun's chaos palm. The aura on him was only at the stage of forming a pill. And he had many means, and he also dabbled in refining tools and alchemy. Not to mention becoming a disciple of the Internal Affairs Hall of the Fire Dragon sect. It's not a problem to become a disciple of the External Affairs Hall. Fortunately, I still have some earth-changing talismans on me. See how I can blend in. Wuchideo pondered for a moment and stuck the talisman on his forehead. In an instant, he turned into Jianyi. Afterwards, he stretched out his hand and brushed his ring, and the ring disappeared instantly. He then laughed and walked towards the direction of the Fire Dragon sect. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 519. Sect Master Zhong, I still have things to do, and then I have to go back to the sect. Among the ruins of the sect master's palace, only Tianzhenzi and Zhong Jingguo were left, plus the fire dragon that had transformed into a human form. Master of the heavenly formation, Zhong Jingguo no longer concealed himself, his eyes were bright and he said meaningfully, have you finished drawing the formation diagram of the mountain protection formation? I am going to paint in the valley right now. Tianzhenzi originally planned to return to Tianzhen sect and draw it, but when faced with Zhong Jingguo's eyes and the words came to his lips, he changed his mind. Thank you, Master Tianzhen. Zhong Jingguo was still as polite as before. But the tone was completely different. Previously, he was a Xianxia. In the Peeper realm, if someone knows the truth, there will be trouble in the future. This is why Yao Wuxi can take things by surprise. Zhong Jingguo, naturally the same is true. But he even used the trump card of Tianhuo, so of course he had to put some pressure on Tianzhenzi. Fortunately, Tianzhenzi is quite sensible. Zhongzong is so polite. My disciple Gao Qiao will stay here to help maintain the mountain protection formation. Zhongzong can rest assured. Of course, Zhong Jingguo waved his hand and said, this sect master will naturally take good care of the disciples of Master Tianzhen. However, I would like to ask Master Tianzhen to emphasize a few more words as promised before. Don't forget it. No, please don't worry, Master Zhong. The Heavenly Formation sect and the Fire Dragon sect are allies. After Master Tianzhen finished speaking, he turned around and left, but his expression was very ugly. Things were developing in an unexpected direction, and he needed to rush back to his sect as soon as possible to discuss it with his elders. The last thing he wanted to see was that Zhong Jingguo unified the three major factions. If this is the case, I am afraid that the Fire Dragon sect will be unstoppable when the secret realm of the Heavenly Book opens. Zhong Jingguo, I didn't expect that your earth fire would advance to heaven fire. When there was no one here, the Fire Dragon said solemnly. Mythical beast, do you want my heavenly fire? Zhong Jingguo raised his eyebrows and said. You are overthinking. Senior Lian has given me enough benefits by letting me stay here. As far as I am concerned, if the Fire Dragon sect is not destroyed, nothing will happen. Ancestor. Zhong Jingguo frowned. It was the first time he knew that the founder of the sect had left something for the mythical beast. This shows. It seems that this mythical beast is not as simple as being enslaved by the ancestor as I imagined. Then, can you contact the ancestor? Zhong Jingguo calmed down and asked. Of course you can. Otherwise, if Wanzong attacks, how can I protect you? After the fire dragon finished speaking, he stopped talking, turned into a fire dragon, and flew towards his habitat. Too much talk leads to mistakes. He said too much. Zhong Jingguo stood there, unable to calm down for a long time. He never knew that even the previous sect masters had not sent any news about this. The ancestor of the fire dragon sect, his surname is Lian. As for what the name is, no one knows. There is no record in the ancient books left by the sect. The only thing he could know was that Lian Nishang was from the ancestor's lineage. After the ancestor founded the sect, in addition to his own heirs, he also recruited several disciples to spread the sect. The surname Zhong is one of them. There are also two surnames, Qi and Shan. However, people of the Qi and Shan veins behave in a low-key manner. All originate from the source, only originate from the elixir. It means refining weapons and elixirs. Dan Lao is a descendant of Shanpai. However, as time passed, these relationships were gradually forgotten. Among the disciples, except for the direct lineage, no one knows the relationship between them. It seems that according to the ancestral teachings, when the sect is in danger of being destroyed, the mountain protecting beast can protect the sect's inheritance. It seems that the beast contacted the ancestor and came here. As he said this, Zhong Jingguo showed a look of envy on his face. When a sect is founded, it is the stage of transformation into gods. Now that so many years have passed, I wonder what the realm is. Tianzhenzi flew all the way to the valley. It happened that Lian Nishang had just left not long ago, otherwise the two of them would have bumped into each other, and there was no telling what would happen. I've met Master. Zhu Yun secretly sighed, thanks to his timely decision, but it was a pity that he didn't have the chance to see what happened to the Fire Dragon sect. Well, Tianzhenzi's face had already regained his composure, and he said, my master is going to draw a formation map. Then you will send it to the Sect Master's Hall to Sect Master Zhong. Now, guard this valley and don't let anyone come in. After saying that, he entered the wooden house. Zhu Yun narrowed his eyes. Originally, Tianzhenzi decided to return to Tianzhen sect and start painting again. But at this time, something changed, that's obviously what happened. But the things related to him in the Fire Dragon section. There is only Zhong Jingguo. I'm about to submit the formation map later, why not take a closer look before proceeding? After all, he will stay in the Fire Dragon sect for nearly a year. Almost half an hour later, Tianzhenzi walked out of the wooden house looking slightly tired, handed over a piece of parchment, and said, this is the formation diagram. You have to hand it over to Zhongzong with your own hands. Do you remember? Yes, Master. Zhu Yun was about to leave, but was stopped by Tianzhenzi. Wait a moment. As soon as he finished speaking, Tianzhenzi stretched out his right index finger and quickly tapped Zhu Yun's lower abdomen several times. Zhu Yun was horrified and subconsciously wanted to resist, but he didn't feel Tianzhenzi's murderous intent, so he endured it. Master, what are you? When Tianzhenzi stopped, Zhu Yun did not notice the changes on his body, so he asked hurriedly. Master is afraid that you will have an accident, so he left a formation on you. Well, see you after the Tianzhu secret realm is over. After saying that, he fled far away, leaving the Fire Dragon sect before Zhu Yun. Formation? The formation on the body. Zhu Yun's eyes condensed slightly. He said he was afraid of accidents, but the real purpose was to monitor, right? Thinking in his heart, Zhu Yun lifted his clothes and exposed his belly. On the lower abdomen, there were several black lines, and the pattern was undoubtedly a formation pattern. He really laid a formation. I have never heard of such a method. It seems that Tianzhenzi, the master of formation, is worthy of his reputation. What is the use of this formation? It is still unknown. After the matter is done, I will find a way to break it. Otherwise, staying in the valley to practice is also uneasy. Putting down his clothes, he also looked at the formation diagram, memorized it in his heart, and then rolled up the parchment and walked towards the direction of the sect master's hall. Although he felt that he was safe in the fire dragon sect, he still had to act carefully. After all, his identity at this time was Gao Qiao of the Heavenly Array sect. To the fire dragon sect, he was still an outsider. After leaving the valley, Zuyun smelled a murderous atmosphere in the sect. Some disciples dressed in the external affairs hall, in groups of 3 or 5, were led back and forth by some people who looked like deacons. It seems that what happened just now was quite a big deal. But why didn't I see the disciples of the internal affairs hall? Zuyun was secretly surprised and lowered his head slightly. When he walked all the way to the sect master's hall, he found that the entire sect master's hall had become a ruin. Zhong Jingguo stood in the center of the ruins, with his hands behind his back, facing him. And behind him, there were more than a dozen Yuanying stage people standing quietly. Not only that. From time to time, a Yuanying stage appeared out of thin air, and when he landed in front of Zhong Jingguo, he would transmit a few words. Around the ruins, the disciples of the external affairs hall led by the deacons were cleaning up the broken bricks and stones. So you are here to do hard labor, no wonder I didn't see any disciples of the internal affairs hall. Zuyun said inwardly, and then said loudly, Tianzhen sect Jiao Qiao, I want to see sect master Zhong. As soon as these words came out, they immediately attracted everyone's attention. As Zhong Jingguo turned around, the other Yuanying stages also turned their heads to look. What's the matter? Zhong Jingguo uttered 2 words, showing his majesty. It was completely different from the warmth in front of Tianzhenzi before. Zuyun said respectfully, Sect Master Zhong, the master asked me to present the things. After that, he took out the rolled scalp paper and lowered his head to hold it on his hands. Where is Master Tianzhen? Master Zhong, my master has returned to the sect, and I asked you to tell him. As he spoke, Zuyun felt a surge of spiritual power, and his hands were suddenly empty, and the scalp paper had fallen into Zhong Jingguo's hands. In theory, Zuyun could leave. But he deliberately stayed. With so many Yuanying staying here, perhaps he could get more information. But he never thought that Zhong Jingguo snorted coldly and said, You leave. Zuyun had no choice but to leave. Just after walking a short distance, he heard a Yuanying stage asked, Master, is that boy Tianzhen's apprentice? Are you asking him to maintain the mountain protection formation for us now? This sentence didn't seem to reveal any information, but Zuyun was shocked and left with satisfaction. Just as he was about to turn around the valley, he suddenly heard a cry of surprise in his ear, Boy, why are you in my fire dragon sect? Zuyun looked back and his face changed drastically. He actually overlooked this person, who was also in the fire dragon sect. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 520. The person who recognized Zuyun was the disciple of the second elder who went to pick up Yan Laoxi at that time. At that time, he saw Zuyun and Yu Haibai fighting together, so he took the opportunity to escape. Moreover, the news of Yan Laoxi's death was also sent back by him. At this time, he was wearing the uniform of a deacon, and he was obviously superior to the other disciples. Apparently, he was leading a group of disciples from the Foreign Affairs Hall to clean up the ruins at the sect master's hall. Zuyun dared to admit it, and said directly, This fellow Taoist, you have recognized the wrong person. I am a member of the Tianzhen sect, and I am here to be responsible for maintaining your mountain protecting formation. After saying that, he left without looking back. This place is not far from the main hall. Originally, his identity was open to question. At that time, he deceived Zhong Jingguo based only on Tianzhen's one-sided words. If he intervenes and the news reaches Zhong Jingguo's ears, and Tianzhenzi is not here at this time. I am afraid things will not be that simple. Thinking of this, Zhu Yun turned a corner and ran towards the valley. He needs to prepare for the worst. If he tells Zhong Jingguo about knowing Zhu Yun, the consequences will be disastrous. Just after Zhu Yun rushed into the valley, this disciple also stood in front of the sect leader. To report to the sect master, this disciple has something to report, and it concerns Yu's Haibai. Upon hearing these three words, not only Zhong Jingguo, but also the others quickly stopped communicating and looked towards him. The momentum of more than 10 nascent soul stage disciples immediately put this disciple under endless pressure. But fortunately, this coercion does not mean to hurt anyone, but these three words Yu's Haibai have become the most hated existence in the Fire Dragon sect. Explain. As a disciple of the second elder, who rebelled against the sect, he was naturally not welcomed. Just one word from Zhong Jingguo already made him tremble as if his chest was hit hard. Section Sect Master, I met the person who was traveling with Elder Yan Laoxi at that time. The disciple said tremblingly. Where is he? Zhong Jingguo's eyes suddenly froze. In fact, Yan Laoxi's death has turned a chapter. But at this time, countless disciples of the Foreign Affairs Hall are here, and he still needs to do enough on the surface to maintain the majesty of the sect master. He just said, is a member of the Tianzhen sect and is responsible for maintaining the mountain protecting formation here. Wherever this disciple dares to hide something, he just tells it truthfully. The master had left. He wanted to avoid being implicated and had no choice but to take credit, so he took the initiative to report the matter. Otherwise, he would not be completely sure in his heart and would definitely have the idea that doing more would be worse than doing less. But as soon as he said these words, huge flames burst out from Zhong Jingguo's body. Originally, at that time, he chose Tianzhenzi because he wanted Tianzhenzi and because he wanted to restrain his trump cards. But at this time, Tianzhenzi has left, and the formation diagram is also in his hand. If the so-called Gao Jiao was really related to Yan Laoxi's death, he wouldn't mind and would kill Zhu Yun. As long as he gains the trust of all Fire Dragon sect disciples, the Fire Dragon sect will become a unified force under his leadership. What is lost in the east, and what is gained is lost in the mulberry tree. Zhong Jingguo was secretly happy, and his whole aura was just a show for others to see. Elders, come with me to see if the disciple who was there that day is real. In addition, you should also go with my sect leader and question him face to face. After saying that, a group of nascent soul stages walked towards the valley under his leadership. How could they not see through Zhong Jingguo's thoughts? They all thought that it seemed that the situation was over and they could no longer hold on to the idea of fighting for power. The sect master's hall is not far from the valley, but Zhong Jingguo chose to walk for show. After touching a stick of incense, all the nascent souls were already standing at the mouth of the valley. Because the disciple was regarded as a witness, he stood not far from Zhong Jingguo. Sect master, this great formation in the valley. One of the elders whispered. Originally, when Tang Liwen was here, although the valley was not a forbidden area, it was not accessible to outsiders. Over the past 500 years, a group of people have long formed a habit of waiting. This time, some people are worried that they will be trapped in the formation. No problem, my sect leader will call him out personally. If he doesn't come to see me within 3 breaths, my sect leader will destroy this valley by force. We also want to see who he is. After Zhong Jingguo finished speaking, his face condensed, and he used his spiritual power to spread his voice. Takahashi, come and see my sect leader quickly. If you don't see me after 3 breaths, don't blame me for being rude. The Dozhuan scene shifting formation had no sound insulation effect, and Tang Liwen did not make any changes because Lian Nishang would often come to her to learn some skills. So Zhu Yun in the wooden house soon heard Zhong Jingguo's voice. It came so fast. Zhu Yun's eyes tightened and his expression became a little nervous. Unexpectedly, the guy actually told Zhong Jingguo. Fortunately, I prepared for the worst and dealt with it accordingly. Thinking of this, Zhu Yun stood up and murmured, "If you can't get through, this is the only way." He opened the door, took a deep look at the main formation, and quickly ran towards the entrance of the valley. While running, he shouted, "Coming, coming, Zhong Zhong Zhong, wait a moment." He didn't dare to use the thunder escape technique, which was his trump card to escape. Running and shouting at the same time shows one's attitude. Now that Zhu Yun came out to meet him, Zhong Jingguo naturally didn't care about the 3-breath time. Seeing Zhu Yun running towards him with a look of respect on his face, Zhong Jingguo turned his head slightly and asked the disciple, "Take a closer look. Is this the person who fought with Yu's Haibai?" This disciple didn't dare to express his anger and stared at Zhu Yun, who was running towards him. But until Zhu Yun stood in front of Zhong Jingguo and saw the ceremony, he didn't make a sound. Zhong Jingguo frowned and shouted in a low voice, "Tell me quickly, is it him?" Although he didn't look at Zhu Yun, he had completely locked his energy on Zhu Yun. As long as Zhu Yun makes the slightest move and wants to escape, this energy will completely crush Zhu Yun. It seems a little different. This disciple didn't dare to lie at all, or in other words, he was completely frightened and subconsciously said it. "What's the difference?" When Zhong Jingguo saw his hesitation, he guessed that this would be the case, and looked at Zhu Yun and asked. Zhu Yun looked respectful and said, "Sect Master Zhong, this junior is preparing to take a walk in the center of the mountain guard formation to get familiar with it. I wonder why Sect Master Zhong wants to see this junior." Zhong Jingguo smiled slightly and said, "Takahashi, this disciple of mine said he had seen you, so my sect leader came over to confront you. You don't shy away from it." Zhu Yun sneered in his heart, knowing what Zhong Jingguo was thinking. "Want to test my reaction? You look down on me too much. Sect Master Zhong, this junior has been studying the formation method in the Tianzhen sect with his master, but he has never interacted with anyone outside the sect. Has this fellow Taoist recognized the wrong person?" Zhu Yun said neither humble nor arrogantly. But when he heard the words "mistaken person," Zhong Jingguo couldn't help but take a second look at Zhu Yun. Suddenly, he also felt a slight difference, but for a while, he couldn't find any difference, and he was a little confused. Zhu Yun's heart skipped a beat before continuing, "Sect Master Zhong, there is one thing that I haven't said yet. In order to protect this junior, my master has been showing a false face. Now this face is revealed for the first time, so this Taoist friend must have admitted the wrong person." Zhong Jingguo suddenly realized, not that he completely believed Zhu Yun, but based on his understanding, it was indeed impossible for this disciple to have seen Zhu Yun. Furthermore, the demon-controlling saint sect and the heavenly formation sect are completely two different people, with no intersection and no enmity. Even if Yan Laoxi and Yu's Haibai really fight, it will definitely be about the auction. The Tianzhen sect considers itself noble and focuses on cultivating the formation, so it does not have much demand for some spiritual objects. That would be a case of mistaken identity. Zhong Jingguo immediately laughed and said, "That's because I misunderstood you. Please forgive me. Sect Master Zhong knows right from wrong, and I will definitely fulfill my master's mission. Ha ha ha, if you have the opportunity to walk around the sect more, you can be considered a guest of our Fire Dragon sect." Zhong Jingguo doesn't want to break up with the Tianzhen sect yet, and there is no need to take action when his disciples cannot confirm Zhu Yun's identity. After all, there is still one spot for Zhu Yun to enter the secret realm of the Book of Heaven. If he is really unhappy, then let his son kill him in the secret realm. Then even if Tianzhenzi has any complaints, he will have nowhere to complain. In the secret realm, life and death are determined by destiny, and wealth and honor are in the sky. These are also the unwritten rules of the Peeper realm. After retreating from the crowd, the disciple was also sent to work. Only then did several nascent souls ask Zhong Jingguo about his purpose. Zhong Jingguo just said that if he had a fight with Yu's Haibai, he would be able to prove that he is not a disciple of the Tianzhen section, but obviously, he is not. Then we will be in the wrong if we try to touch him. The Tianzhen sect is all hypocrites, and we, the Fire Dragon sect, are the ones who have no idea. There are not hundreds of wastes waiting to be revitalized, but the losses are not small. As soon as the words came to this, everyone understood. Zhu Yun kept watching these people leave. It wasn't until they were far away that he took a deep breath and walked to the pavilion. With the cover of the restriction in his eyes, he tore off a talisman from his forehead. Fortunately, I drew the talisman of changing heaven and earth, and only moved my facial features slightly, and these nascent souls didn't look at me carefully at that time. Otherwise, there might have been a killing spree, and the self-destruction formation at my feet would have been used. Zhu Yun touched the Diwu glass mirror on his chest and clearly felt that his frantic heartbeat was slowly calming down. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding.